and let us all do we can to build a better future.
Look, I am a huge supporter of third parties, but since we started Hard Lens Media with my colleague Daniel Lupker, and of course, huge shout out to our editor Faze, we have had numerous independent candidates on our show, be they non-affiliate with the Libertarian Party, Green Party, and let's be very clear here. The United States, we have a two-party, dare I say it, a single neoliberal establishment party that puts on the facade that our votes do matter. But unfortunately, third parties have constantly been getting screwed over, not only at the state level, but at the federal level. And I just also want to iterate here, too, and this is just my own personal opinion, that the Greens and, yes, the Libertarians dropped the ball in 2016 when there was a demand for maybe something new with the aftermath of how the 2016 election cycle turned out. And of course, there was the lackluster third party movement in 2020. And that's just my opinion, because again,
Right.
it didn't hold any comparison to what we saw with Dr. Jill Stein of the Green Party. And of course, Gary Johnson of 2016. The Libertarian Green Party turnout for 2020 was mediocre, and that's me being generous. So I want to ask you for this 2024 campaign, and I know that you mentioned this with Pasta, host of the Convo Couch, Craig Gajula. What will be your 2024 Green Party outreach? What kind of infrastructure are you going to be building to be reaching out to potential voters and perhaps reigniting voter interest into the Green Party? Because from my perspective, from what I've covered here in Illinois and our neighboring state in Indiana, the Greens could have done much, much more. And as a side note, it wasn't up until there was a point here, the Illinois Green Party, where it was acknowledged as a legitimate party up until 2010. What will be your plan for, one, voter outreach, and two, building a strong infrastructure even after the 2024 election cycle?
Yeah, no, I appreciate the question, because for me, this campaign is a moment in a much, much larger movement. And it's a movement not just in the United States, in the American empire, but it's international. It's a global movement. It's an attempt to really come to terms with corporate power across national boundaries. This is why the ecological crisis is so inseparable from the economic crisis of grotesque wealth inequality, and how it's tied to the impact on poor communities, disproportionately Black and brown, so that white supremacy plays a crucial role as well. When it comes to infrastructure and institution, brother, I started with the People's Party. And
That's
I will
correct.
always be grateful for them for offering me the opportunity to run. Very quickly, it was clear that when it came to issues of institutional capacity on the one hand, and then also a certain kind of baggage given the internal strife of the People's Party, it became, I thought, incumbent upon me to keep the focus where it belonged. I didn't want any distractions. And so when I had these wonderful talks with Sister Jill Stein and Brother Ajamu Baraka, among others, it became possible to make that move to the Green Party. Again, Brother Chris Hedges was very important in this regard. Now, the Green Party already has 17. We could probably get up to about 35 or so within a matter of 2 or 3 months. Mm-hmm. So you see, when we begin in the fall, we should be up, we think, to about 30. And it's not just a matter of numbers, but it's a matter also of a certain kind of galvanizing power, trying to generate excitement, to give people a sense of vision and a sense of hope, not empty hope, but a sense of hope and possibility, but being honest that this is not about making electoral politics the fundamental site for freedom. Electoral politics is one vehicle. If you don't have a larger social movement in place, then the electoral politics becomes too isolated. And of course, it so easily gets devoured by corporate power and Wall Street seductions. Now, as you know, history's open-ended and unpredictable, brother. I don't know exactly what's coming. I know that what my aims and my ends are is to try to make this part of a much larger social movement that tries to bring together a variety of different people, figures, institutions in the name of a solidarity. So we're not going to get, you can imagine, any kind of unanimity. This is more jazz band than a military band. You know what I mean? we the coming together we're talking about is the lifting of voices. There's going to be all kinds of agreements and disagreements and so forth, but we're trying to realign the citizenry in such a way that they see what's at stake, which is life and death, destruction of the planet, destruction of American democracy. What it really means to talk about a democratic society in which the elites at the top have accountability in the economy and politics and in military decisions. And so that is a grand project, but I think we have very little choice for those of us who have a certain kind of calling and a tie to a cause. And that's really what this is about. It's about a calling and a cause. It's not about a strategy and a brand. You see, most politicians really just have a brand because they're marketeers. Whereas what I'm trying to do is to build, as you can imagine, on the legacy of Martin King, Fannie Lou Hamer, Dorothy Day, Rabbi Heschel. And of course, in Chicago, we could talk about Curtis Mayfield.
Thanks for the shout out for the city.
Oh, you ain't lying to me, Chi-Town. Good God Almighty. And the kind of work that you do as well, though, you see, because when we talk about a social movement, you can't have social movement without courageous voices in media that are willing to cut against the grain, that are willing to shatter so many of the lies that's coming out of corporate media, that's misleading people and discouraging people. And so it's a matter of a kind of a moral reckoning, a spiritual awakening, a political renaissance. And in the end, it is about revolution in the sense that Martin King talked about it, which is the reshaping of our priorities.
I understand that. And again, I just want to just add, this is a follow-up to it then, because I want to give a shout out to my colleagues at Indie News Network, because I was speaking with them in regards to this interview in advance. And I know my colleague Reef and Indy, shout out to you two guys. And I believe Colin also asked this as well. And this is something I have asked third-party candidates, and I will put this to you as well. The individuals that we've interviewed on my show in the past, be they libertarian or green, it's all about winning, and I get it, but there needs to be and then what comes after, because if you don't win, because we do know the amount of censorship that third parties get, and what will have to make this, I think, election cycle for Greens, your party, and Libertarians and whoever else is running is to get that coveted 15% in the media polls to be acknowledged, to be put on the debate stage with the two-party neoliberal establishment individuals in the DNC and the RNC. But then also to be federally recognized, you need to get 5%, I believe 7% or above, preferably at the double digits. So what is your overall goal? To win the presidency, or dare I say, to build the Green Party to be recognized as an individual institution that voters can continue to build on as a movement? Because ideally, I would like to see the Greens, and yes, to some extent, Libertarians step up and maybe win federal offices, the presidency. That's great. But a lot of Americans still are hesitant of the third party due to the media smears. Is your goal going to be just willing to build up the infrastructure, win, or is it a two-pronged strategy?
Well, I would say it's multi-pronged. It's more than even two. It's a variety of prongs, meaning on the one hand, I am running to win because I don't know exactly what's going to happen. This is a very fragile moment. That Biden's running out of gas, that Trump may be on the way to jail, that No Labels Party may present a candidate, Manchin or what have you.
Okay. We will, I believe that Dr. Cornel West has frozen. I will see what we can do to get
Oh, what happened?
Sorry, Dr. West. I apologize. I'm going to have to ask you to remake that statement. I believe your signal came in weak and you were frozen. Can you please restate?
And that was
what
on
you were
my
gonna say?
side?
Yes, sir. I am very sorry.
Oh my God. I'm sorry about that, man.
It's all good. It's all good.
No.
Please, reinstate it.
I am very much running. One, I think it's a multi-pronged strategy. I'm running to win, but by winning, what I mean is not simply acknowledging the possibilities that we have such an unpredictable moment, that Biden's running out of gas, that Trump may be on the way to jail, the No Labels Party may end up running Manchin, the Libertarian Party may be strong. We don't know exactly what's going on now. It's a very, very contingent moment of uncertainty. But most importantly for me, it's a matter of keeping the focus on empowering poor and working people. That means, yes, building infrastructure, yes, trying to create stronger institutions for stronger organizational capacity, but at the same time, it's educational. That is to say, it's political. It's exposing our precious fellow citizens the visions and analysis that oftentimes they do not have access to, given the narrowness of corporate media. And so I don't want to in any way narrow this down to just talking about institution or infrastructure. I don't want to narrow it down by just winning electorally. It's a matter of trying to create something much bigger and then connecting with other movements around the world. We're living in a moment in which there's fundamental glacier shifts globally. The American empire is in deep trouble. If I become head of the empire, I want to dismantle the empire. We don't need 800 military units around the world. We don't need troops in 150 countries. We could be a nation among nations rather than an empire trying to subordinate other nations to us in this regard. I want to make sure that we can cut off the possibilities of wars that can lead to nuclear exchange and lead to nuclear holocaust. I want to make sure, in fact, that our working people and poor people in the United States, for once, are at the very center of how we conceive of public policy. And there's a whole lot of creative voices, intellectuals, experts, and everyday people who have ideas of how we could talk about housing, how we talk about Medicare for all, how we could talk about ending mass incarceration, how we could talk about stopping Cop City, how we could talk about massive shifts from military spending into spending that have to do with quality education, jobs with a living wage, a strong defense of trade unions that are trying to fight in the face of corporate greed, trying to fight in the place of the entrenched interests of bosses. I mean, that's what the solidarity I'm calling for. And as you know, that's a historical process.
Right.
It's not going to be just a moment or an instant.